Hey, folks, and welcome into episode 22 of the Longhorn Mailbag. Thanks so much for being here with us on the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel. Hope everyone had a lovely holiday, and it's finally game week. Sugar Bowl coming up on Monday in New Orleans. Number 2 Washington against number 3 Texas. So it's time to answer some of your questions from both Twitter and the board at horns247.com. No true false this week. Unfortunately, didn't see the post from our good friend Ranger's dad, but if I do see it later in the week at horns247.com, I'll make sure to make my predictions over there. All right, without further ado, let's take our first one from @Monine on Twitter. Best O-line in Washington against best D-line in Texas. Who wins more on Monday? Well, folks, here's your ball game. Plain and simple, I think. You can make the argument that Texas's offensive line against Washington's defensive line is going to have a similar impact on the game, but I really think that whoever wins this battle between these two sides of the ball up front of the line of scrimmage is going to be the determining factor in this ball game. You know, it is truly best on best. The Joe Moore award-winning offensive line unit of the Huskies against a Texas defensive line that has the best defensive tackle duo in the nation, T'Vondre Sweat and Byron Murphy. So you can't ask for anything better than that. Let's go ahead and jump into some of the numbers of this matchup. Starting with Washington, they're tied for fourth in the country in sacks allowed. They've given up just 11 all season long. They give Michael Penix Jr. plenty of time to throw the ball. He's completed 66% of his passes this year, and they're fifth in the country in plays of 20 or more yards. They've got 83 of those this season. So that is well caliber enough of a resume to win the Joe Moore Award, and Washington did just that a couple weeks ago. Now for Texas on the other side of the ball, they've got the Allen Trophy winner and unanimous All-American in T'Vondre Sweat. They've got the Big 12 leader in quarterback pressures with 40 and the Big 12 defensive lineman of the year in Byron Murphy. And as a unit, their pass rush is 36 in the country in sacks. It is as evenly matched as it sounds. We can't emphasize that enough, that this really could go either way, and that's why it is going to be such a big determining factor for this ball game. For me, when I look at this matchup, the two telling factors are what happens on third down and what happens on yards, or on plays, of 20 or more yards. Starting with third down, Texas has been one of the best third down defenses in the country. They have allowed 26.51% of opposing third downs to be converted this season. Washington, 48.3% conversion rate on third down. Texas, the second best third down defense in the country. Washington, the 11th best third down offense in the country. So it is those narrow margins where this game is going to be won. And I have no reason to believe that Texas can't stop Washington on third down, because they have stopped everybody this year on third down. But Texas also hasn't faced an offense as good as Washington. So it's a little bit of a catch there. And those plays of 20 or more yards. We mentioned Washington having 83 of those in their bag, which is good for fifth best in the country. Texas has given up 47 of them this year. So who gets the edge in that department? In my mind, when we add all of this together and take a look at it all holistically, I think Texas has the narrowest of edges here in this game, because there's the saying defense wins championships. And I think that it kind of applies here, because if you had to have me pick which group defensively I would rather have on the field trying to get a stop and would be more confident in, I would have to go with Texas's defense overall. They have been miles better than Washington's defense so far this year. They have proven themselves against good offenses, but they haven't seen a caliber offense of Washington yet this year. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch the Huskies offensive line against the Longhorns defensive line. And ultimately, I think that's where this game is decided. All right, next question from @TheRealRamrod, also from Twitter. What does Texas have to do to slow Washington down? Well, I think the easy answer would be to play well in the secondary and take Washington's wide receivers away and out of the game. Well, that's easier said than done. And I think, I don't think anybody has shown they can do that. I don't think Texas will be able to do that for 60 minutes. So what I think they can do is slow the Huskies down by keeping their offense off the field. Washington loves the big plays, like we talked about before, 83, 20 or more yard plays this year. They love deep crossing routes. They play with high tempo, and they just run a lot of stuff that gets them downfield in a hurry. So, and while that proved to be an issue for Texas's defense in games earlier this season against teams like Oklahoma, they've also used that to kind of their advantage a little bit. And I really think back to the Alabama game, and there's no better opponent to kind of reference here, because I think Washington is going to be the best team that Texas has played since Alabama. So You think of the end of that Alabama game, Texas held on to the ball for a majority of the fourth quarter to essentially take the game away from Alabama without really needing to do much except get a couple of first downs. So if Texas gets themselves into the situations where they have those long drives, 10, 12 play drives where they're going down and scoring, it has to be touchdowns. They can't struggle in the red zone in this game. But if they're able to do that, then they can wear this Washington team down and defensively, and that keeps their offense off the field. Where even if they come in and score quickly, if you have got the ball last and you need a touchdown drive, you have to feel confident with Quinn Ewers' ability to lead the team down the field against a defense in Washington that has been subpar all season long, especially in the red zone. So I think controlling the time of possession, controlling the clock is going to be huge for Texas, and it also rests the Texas defense. We mentioned Washington playing at a high tempo. If they're getting long breathers because of the offense, then it's going to be a lot, not necessarily easier, but the defense is going to be a lot more energized in getting pressure on Michael Penix Jr., getting pressure on those wide receivers, making things hard for Dylan Johnson up the middle. So controlling the clock is going to be the biggest thing for Texas if they want to slow Washington down offensively and wear them down defensively. Next up, from @PoorSubstitute for Publius on Twitter, what are the biggest matchup advantages in the game for each team? So we'll go one apiece, and we'll start with Washington. I think clearly their biggest advantage is in the wide receiver department. Texas's secondary has struggled a lot this year through the air, and it doesn't help that Washington has, I would say, the best receiver core in all of college football in Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk, and Jalen McMillan. All three of those guys haven't been healthy at the same time a lot this year, but when they have been together, they are extremely explosive, and it's a lot better when you've got a Heisman finalist quarterback in Michael Penix Jr. throwing you the ball. So that is a huge, huge advantage for Washington in this game, and I expect them to take full advantage of it, quite frankly. For Texas, I see their advantage being that their defense is a whole lot better than Washington's. If this game is a shootout and comes down to who can make the final stop, you have to think that Texas's unit is more likely to do that based on what we've seen this season, and I just mentioned that a little bit earlier. So that's the answer there, I think. All right, and last but not least, from the board, Astaman has our final question. What might Washington do to open up passing opportunities? Well, I think they're going to do what they've done all season. Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb love the play action and deep crossing route game. They have so much of that in their bag, and they've done it so well this season because they have the weaponry to do so. So we're probably going to see a lot of that, and it's going to be big plays, long passing plays that take a long time to develop, which is why getting pressure on Michael Penix Jr. is so important for Texas defensively in this ball game. If they don't give him the time to let those plays develop, if Michael Penix Jr. doesn't have the time to let his receivers get downfield, then things get a lot more difficult. If they try to turn to the run game, I think Dylan Johnson's a great running back, but Texas's defense has just been so good this year that is not going to be an area of the game where I think Washington is going to find a strong suit if they can't get their passing game going, or if Texas is just dominating them at the line of scrimmage. So being able to be successful in the pass rush and getting pressure on Michael Penix is paramount in this game, and that would throw a loop in all of Washington's preparation. But as far as their offense for their passing opportunities, expect a lot of play action, expect a lot of long routes where Michael Penix Jr. is looking for time in the pocket to deliver a ball downfield. He's not much of a runner, but he can throw on the move. So it's important to force throwaways, force 50-50 balls for this Texas defense if they want to have a shot defensively. And so that's going to do it for this episode of the Longhorn Mailbag. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that little bell next to the name so you have post notifications on and you're the first to know when new content heads your way. Be on the lookout for Chip and I's game preview later this week. And until then, we'll see you next time.